great to be here and very excited about this session on Invest in Rwanda. I thought I'd start the session by also just being honest as to why they invited me to moderate the session. And so we're going to talk a lot about investing professionally in Rwanda. If you want to invest personally in Rwanda and find a wife, you can also come talk to me. I can give you some tips on that. But let's focus on the professional investments for now. Magda, let me start with you, right? The IFC invests a lot in Rwanda. I would love to hear a bit of, we've heard from Nelly about, the attraction, why you should invest here, but let's talk about some of the investments you've made. How did you go about them? What has been the impact, and what are you most proud of?
No, thank you very much, Asha, and Nelly, thank you very much for hosting us. Why Rwanda? I mean, there is something special in Rwanda, which is there is a mix of tangible investment and investment in intangible thing. And it's reflected in the number on services. People always think about Africa, about investing in physical things. Do I invest in mining and extract it? Do I invest in commodity? But people don't think about Africa as a place of knowledge, as a place of modern economy. And I think this is something which is very attractive in Rwanda, because you think about it and you're looking at the whole strategy. I've been around a country which have noticed that the comparative advantage that they can build over time will not be only around the physical endowment that they have. And I think that creates a long-term vision, and that allows you to invest in sectors that are nascent sectors, but also sectors where you can use technology, which is the most advanced technology. So when we were talking a few years ago, when I started working on Rwanda and talking to people, at that time, we had a country which said, I want to be a service economy in Africa because I am a landlocked country. I am a country which has access to the sea. What can I do which is valuable? What can I think? So they built all the ingredients that are necessary for it. Business climate, it went to the top of the ranking. Secondly, to build the infrastructure that was necessary. The place where we are sitting here today didn't exist a few years ago. There was no centers, there were no hotels of this quality. The country systematically invested in it to create the condition for it. The third element was the human capital. If you want to be in the knowledge economy and be able to build on this comparative advantage, you needed to think about human capital. But when people talk about human capital, often they talk about it in very broad terms, not specific. And what I've seen in Rwanda was a focus on science and STEM. So they attracted the Mathematical Institute here. They are creating now the life science that we will be discussing later on. So all these elements were put in place. So that's why IFC, when we're looking at Rwanda, we're not looking only about investment in a specific country. We're talking about the market, not only the African market, but the market which goes beyond the African, because we're talking about intangible and investment, not investment only in physical goods. It's about knowledge, and I think it's very important. I think that when we want to think about what will be the way, personally, I see the way Rwanda will be reaching the 4,000 per capita income in a few years. I see an economy which will be relying a lot on services, on knowledge, on science, relying on IT, on artificial intelligence, on biotech, on precision medicine, all these. And at the back of it, to have an economy which is very much around climate change, around environment. And so the economy will be projecting a little bit what the world sees, the world becoming in a few years. So this is, Aisha, when I think about Rwanda, that's what I'm thinking about. So how IFC has been fitting in all this? We've been investing in the financial sector. We were partnering in creating the Kigali financial sector by being a technical assistant and working on this area. We're working on deepening the capital market by bringing on financial innovation. When people didn't believe that the country can have mRNA vaccine, we betted on it and started working with the authority on Rwanda around that. And today we are BioNTech, which is here. We invested in agriculture because there were a strong will to have a growth which is well shared across the population. And the rural part of Rwanda needed to benefit also from that growth that the country was registering. So we invested in agriculture, in small or the farmers, and tried to support, put in place, use the technology that was available for that. So there was always as a kind of an investment that we did over time, and we are seeing many other opportunities coming in that sector. So we will be helping of creating economy of the fourth industrial revolution, which is a lot based on knowledge.
Great. So across multiple sectors and quite successful investments. Maybe Nelly, let's come to you then. We loved what you showed about how the country is doing and the growth rate going forward. But we'd love to hear about what are the sectors where there are investors in the room, right? What sectors are you prioritizing? Where are you looking for investors to come in?
Thank you, Acha, and thank you, Maktar, for all the work you mentioned in the work that continues. So I think if I pick up from the numbers I was discussing of how we grew this last year, I mentioned the sector of service that contributed to 44% of the GDP, and that was attributed mostly to the manufacturing and the construction activities. So if you look at the economy, even by the look of the eye today, you can see a lot of construction happening, real estate development, and also investment in building industries or companies, manufacturing companies. So I believe my colleagues from Rwanda Social Security Board and others on the panel will show specific projects. But one of the sectors that is still of attraction and it is driving that growth is in manufacturing and also construction, especially looking at real estate and affordable housing. Affordable housing is also one of the projects we've worked on with IFC because of, I would say, mainly two reasons. Of course, there's a need having an economy that is growing fast, looking at our population, 13 million of Rwandans, with 70% of our population young people who are getting educated, getting jobs, and forming homes, including needing to have decent lives, decent living neighborhoods. But also the management of our land requires that we do invest also in that sector, but in a way that is progressive, in a way that we also efficiently manage our land. So housing, affordable housing, going high in the sky than using more of the land space is one of sectors that are attractive. But also the service sector grew considerably. 11% of growth, which was mainly propelled by ICT, information and technology. He mentioned a lot of investment that has been done so far into technology and having infrastructure, but also setting up canal or vessels of enabling entrepreneurship also under innovation and technology. So that is also a flourishing sector. I'll mention, for example, today the Kigali Innovation Center, which is a project that has been initiated by government of Rwanda in collaboration with Africa 50 and some fundings from AFDB. So that's a project that is intended to set up a platform infrastructure, but that will be able to attract the sectors that boost the drive of the economy. We have in that area technology facilities that are going to be able to host technological companies. But also you have education, Carnegie Mellon University, African Leadership University, University of Rwanda, the Department in Research and Development, so that you also boost and build the skills that are needed, as I mentioned earlier, for the growth of the economy. I would also mention agro-processing. Agro-processing being very key, and I'll mention one of the projects, Gabiro Agri-Hub. We've already finished phase 1. This is a project where government of Rwanda has invested in basic infrastructures, roads, electricity, irrigation system, and we work with private sector to invest in farming for food security, which is very key for the nation, but also for export. We know that we need also to increase external revenues for our trade deficit balance, and this is also a key strategic area. So actually, I would say that if you look at the three components that are key, we're looking into industry, manufacturing growth, of course, real estate when it goes with the constructions, but also looking at the service, boosting it again. I have not mentioned the hospitality, which has also proven to grow a lot and which is, again, a huge opportunity with all these international conferences we are having, with investment which is being done in the Kigali Sports City, the whole area around the stadium with BK Arena, the stadium which is now renewed, that is going to be having 45,000 capacity. The Zaria Court, which is connected to it, which is going to be providing activities, sport, entertainment. That is also a hub that is giving other opportunities of investment in the area, also of creative industry, of sport and hospitality. Thank you.
Great. So across multiple sectors, the one thing, we all love Rwanda, but the one thing I hear some investors say sometimes, and I'm sure some people are thinking that in the room, is that Rwanda is a small market. Right? It's a small market. So for those investors who are thinking that, what's your message to them?
I think they saw the message. Already with the growth we showed in the connectivity, Rwanda is no longer seen as just 13 million population in Rwanda. With East African community, we have close to 300 million. With connectivity with the rest of the world, now the world is accessible, whether you're in Rwanda, and also corporations that are existing with different countries. With the leadership of His Excellency, the President of the Republic, we've fostered over the years good collaboration and partnership with different countries where Rwanda and even Rwandans have access, huge access to those markets. And we invite you to come and partner with us even to get to those access to those markets. We like to say that we are a proof of concept country. We try, and now we try even starting new things. And now with all those opportunities, please join us so that we venture into that together. Thank you.
Okay, I love the message. Now, I think it's all positive. I'd love to hear a bit more, Maktar, maybe from you, two things. One is any challenges you faced as you look to invest here. And secondly is, as I look at all of us from different countries here, the truth is we don't see this kind of attraction, this kind of investment in other countries. Right? We say Rwanda, we talk about Rwanda, and Nelly spoke about the growth, but Rwanda has grown at 7%, not for 1 year, not for 5, not for 10, not for 15, for 20 years, consistently. Right? Imagine what that then does. But we don't see that in many other African countries. So, Maktar, the second question is, what can we learn and replicate in our countries to try to emulate what Rwanda has done?
No, Aisha, you really touched the hard question. I think that we cannot have a country growing like that in the middle of countries which are not necessarily growing at the same pace. So we don't need to see about the externalities of this growth in Rwanda on the rest of the continent. And I think that the Africa Free Trade Agreement is a good framework to look at what Rwanda can bring to the situation, to the continent. I think that by creating those supply chain, by integrating them and using really Rwanda as a hub in logistics, I see that as being an important feature of the growth of Rwanda. If you think about it, there are not a lot of countries in Africa which have articulated a strategy around being a hub for logistics. So I think that the investments that we'll be making in the airport, in Rwanda Airways, the alliances that you're building around that, the warehouse and park that you are building around, the fact that we will be able to do some agro-industry by importing some agricultural product that are coming from other countries and mix them with the local production, all that will create a supply chain in the continent that will be helping to, I hope, create the same dynamics in some economies which have the potential of doing that, but we are not doing it. I think that there is a kind of a demand, a quality of demand that will be required by Rwanda as a hub, a logistic hub, that will force some countries to improve the quality of their production, improve the quality of the connectivity, and therefore being part of the supply chain. And I think that's something that we need to think about. And you and I have been talking a lot about the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement. I think more and more we need to have data which can show in the continent where are the bottlenecks to start having and reaching that goal. I think that more and more we need to have this dialogue between private sector and public sector at the continental level, where those questions can be raised and the hard question raised and put at the table so that we can really improve the efficiency of the supply chain in Africa. I think that we will need at some point to have conversations which are, direct conversation about why things are not moving as they should be moving in some places in the continent. I think we cannot afford not to have those conversations if we want to have consistent growth. Because as you rightly said, you reach this level by not having stop and goes. You need to consistently grow year after year, around 7, 8, sometimes 10%. Guangzhou in China grew by 15% for close to 20 years. It's not something that, if you want to really eradicate poverty, become a middle-income country, that's what is needed. It's not to say I've grown for 8% for 2 years, so I'm fine. No, especially when you have still a demographic growth, a population growth which is still high, which means in capita on a real term, your growth is not as large. So I think that the African Free Trade Agreement, having data on the quality of exchanges that we're having, and having real conversation and harder. And I think the private sector and the CEO forum can be a place where people can be putting these issues at this table and raise them openly and have the dialogue between the policymakers and the private sector. And I think with that, we will have more investment and we'll be able to sustain it. And the rest of the continent will be able to build on this experience and other experience that we are seeing burgeoning in some other places in the continent, but not at the scale that we want to be able to make a difference for the continent.
No, totally agree. And I mean, again, I love the conversation, but I think it's too positive, right? So there must be some challenges, right? There must be some challenges. So Nelly, no, I'd love to hear, or maybe from you, starting with you.
I think the challenges, which is the challenge of every country, is the speed at which you invest. Investing in human capital takes time, and the result takes time. You're not moving to become a country which has a high level of STEM-trained people like Korea and so forth in one day. It's a long education takes time. So I think that one of the challenges is the time it will take to reap the benefit of the investments that are made now in education and human capital. So I think that's one of the challenge, particularly when we have a very young population, which require a lot of investment to be able to bring them at this level. So that's one thing. The second one, I think, is to ensure that some of the conflict or situation that we would like to build in the continent, because I think that I see it as a threat right now, that we might have a lot of disruption in the supply chain, which might affect the ability to be used as a hub and be able to create this value addition. So those two elements, Asha, is those that I see as immediate challenges, the time it takes to reap the benefit out of investing the human capital, both in health and education.
Got it. We'd love to hear a few more from you.
Thank you. So maybe in addition to what he's just said, I think we still also have the challenge of setting up infrastructures that are needed when we want to get into the new sectors that I have to transform. I'll mention, for example, the collaboration we are currently having with IFC to create the Life Science Park. And that is an intention to create an industrial park where pharmaceutical ecosystem can flourish. And to set up that, that's a reality that we're looking at, and having partners that are ready, because before you're able to bring in the industries you need, before you're able to address the issue we want to address in Africa, which is the biggest dependency we have on pharmaceuticals. Today, 70% of pharmaceuticals in Africa are imported, and 95% of vaccines are imported. So obviously, it's not a question if we need to invest in that sector, we absolutely have to. But the starting point is not that smooth or an easy one. Creating that eco park to be able, currently have a project of having 40 hectares size, but if you look at everything you need to set up in there, the starting point requires a certain investment. That one, there has to be a political will, there has to be a willingness, leadership to take that decision. Luckily, Rwandan leadership has clearly manifested that willingness and commitment, but you also have to have development partners and also investors into that. So infrastructures that orient to those new sectors we have to enter into is also a side which is still challenging, but at the same time an opportunity. And then another one, of course, is access to capital, access to finance. That is why the creation of Kigali International Financial Center is in that direction. We're not yet where we want it to be. We are not yet, not only in Rwanda, but in Africa, in different projects. When we talk of startups, entrepreneurship projects, creation of funds, today we've created Rwanda Innovation Fund with the FDB, but this is a fund which is still need a lot to be able to cover even the needs of the different ideas and innovation. Investing in startup is investing in the future in ideas, innovation. But for someone to put a capital there, you're giving a certain leeway before you start getting results or before you start getting a return on investment. So those are still challenges which are at the same time opportunities, but that one face, and there may be a reality that will make something not move or be realized at the speed you would want or you wish to have it done. Thank you.
I just want you to please on that. I think one of the challenges that I see is equity. You will have companies which grow very fast in the service sector. People can leverage a lot of debt. But when you are in the service and the knowledge economy, a lot of things is betting on what is happening. So patient capital and these things like that are very important. So how to ensure that we will have enough equity to support those companies which are currently growing at a faster pace and which might be at some point over-leveraged because of meeting the demand that, of the market. And that will require to think about how to attract more equity in the economy, which is a challenge for all countries. But second one is what I say is a contagion effect. There is still a very strong aggregate view of the African continent. So when something happened in Liberia, people say, oh, it's happening in Rwanda. You say, Liberia is closer to maybe Europe than it is to Rwanda. So it's important to, when I'm talking about having a stability in the continent, is because this effect, even if this kind of situation happens far from your economy, unfortunately, is still in the continent affect the perception of investment and the cost of capital which is attached to it. So I think that those are the kind of question because of the nature of the growth that they have in Rwanda. That quality of information is very important for the market.
And I like the fact, and again, we talk about as challenges, but these are all, as Nelly's pointed, the opportunities, right? Now our time is up, but so I'm going to ask you one last question, each of you, which is answer in 7 words or less. 7 words or less, you should invest in Rwanda because, and I'll start with you, Nelly, because I'm sure you answer that question all the time, and I'll give Maktar a few minutes to think about it. You should invest in Rwanda because?
We are trustable partners to make your business win-win.
All right, well, okay, fair. Maktar?
Because it's a place you can make money in a safe way.
Oh, there we go. Please join me in thanking my fellow panelists. Thank you.